All right, it is a great pleasure. When Robbie asked me, I started doing some things a while back, doing some audio video stuff for this thing, so we can have cool graphics and just make this thing look really network and pop, because you guys all deserve it. A lot of you traveled a very long way, and we thank you. But when I found out that our next speaker was going to be here, I was like, no way. And I started looking more of his stuff up, and I was like, whoa. And I really, truly believe that you all are going to be very surprised if you have not seen him speak, and if you're not familiar with what he's going to do. But you're in for a wonderful treat. So please welcome all the way from Argentina, and thank you for helping getting him here, because it's been a wonderful experience for him, I'm sure. But meeting him yesterday, here's how humble this guy is. When I first got here, or got up the next day, I saw this guy, and I'm going to be honest. I saw this guy sitting in this chair with a blanket over him, crashed out in the lobby. Never complained about anything, but they kind of had a mess up with his room, or waiting for his room or whatever. He didn't say a word. I found out later, I was like, should I put a cup down there and people can start putting money in this thing for this guy? And then I got a decent look at him. I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. And then all of a sudden, when he got up and he's walking around, I'm like, wait a minute, he looks familiar. And he goes, hi, I'm Iru. Iru Landucci. He's like, yeah. The guy didn't even eat for over 24 hours. He never said a word to anybody. Just humble, just hanging out. And now I'd just like to bring him to the stage, because he's, like I said, he came a long way from home. And we really appreciate you taking the time to be here. Really do. So, welcome. This is Iru Landucci.
Thank you for the presentation. Okay. I'm a little nervous. Maybe you noticed that. Well, first of all, thanks to everybody to be here. It's a pleasure. It's a dream come true for me. Be in this conference. I think the first one in the last 12,000 years, because I don't think there is any before. So it's an honor to represent the thoughts and the feelings of the Spanish language people, because this is also a reality in that kind of part of the world. So I hope you like my presentation. Maybe you're going to notice that I am forget some words or some kind of that stuff. So I like to start. I bring out. Could you put the slide? Okay. That one for if I don't have any people to introduce me. So I bring my. I used to be a fan of Star Wars, so I have my saber laser to save the world. So I'm going to start with the general approach. I have a lot of slides, so maybe I don't have the time to cover everyone. But well, I'm going to try to do the best. So I shut it down. Perfect. Okay. Here we go. There is. Well, my name, as you may know it, is Iru Landucci. I have 36 years old. I born in La Plata. It's a city near to Buenos Aires. I work like a visual effect technical director from 20 years. And I am a motion graphic designer. So that is my background on professional work. And as a researcher, I am since 12 years that I be aware that the government is not what they tell us. So and start to research the New World Order. And 4 years ago, I come approach with the flat Earth reality. So that's blown my mind, and I am 24 hours studying the flat Earth things. So I have my own radio show in my country, and I'm also studying shamanic medicine. If anybody doesn't know what it is, I really recommend you. And I'm also specialist in rituals and symbols and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to also present that kind of things. This is my YouTube channel. It's a very small channel with 30,000 people following the channel. All, of course, the majority is Spanish language, but I have my hangout with other persons around the world, of course, with Globebusters, with Bob, with Cheran. I also have my hangout with Santos Bonacci, with Antonio Subirat, so I learned a lot from these guys, so I really appreciate that the opportunity that they give me to be part of the wave. And for me, everything is my objective, because I am a guy who have their own talk show and things like that. So my objective with the Flat Earth was trying to get out of the YouTube box and trying to present to real people and trying to put in the media and use the same weapons that they use against us. So that, you know, that was the idea. So I have very lucky because a very famous actor in Argentina called Gaston Pauls, who make even a movie here in Hollywood called Antibody. Is that movie? Okay, my laser goes down. Perfect. Star Wars power. This movie he make here in Hollywood, and Hollywood also make a remake of his movie called Nine Queens, but here called Criminal. So he is a very famous person in Argentina, and also a Star Wars fan. But he come aware of the Flat Earth, so he changed their mind, and he gave me the opportunity in his radio show to present to the audience the Flat Earth reality. So as soon as I made that, the newspaper in Argentina start to make fun of the eccentric people that still believe the Earth is flat, you know, that kind of heading. So after that radio talk show, I start to participate in other radio shows from Argentina, very important radio shows and TV programs and things like that. So the movement started to grow very quickly thanks to Gaston Pauls. So the things reach even a point that the university of my city, the University of Geophysics and Astronomic Science, he make a letter and sent to the TV program where I was participate to trying to shoot me down, instead of sending some guy to refute me or show why the Earth is a sphere. So that is the kind of procedure that they use. So how I can be a flat earther, how I become a flat earther? Well, for me the most things was, the more important thing was this kind of stuff. Of course you are going to know what I'm talking about. It's this kind of stuff. My friend.
If I say that the world is round and someone else says it's flat.
It's a constellation.
Some of these folks were around when Columbus set sail. They must have been founding members of the Flat Earth Society. They would not have believed that the world was round. We don't have time for a meeting of the Flat Earth Society.
Let me just underscore, you don't need to be a scientist to know that the Earth is round.
We need to make clear that those members of the Flat Earth Society,
The current members of the Flat Earth Society in Congress.
We got some people at high levels of aspiration who are the Flat Earth. We have Flat Earth Caucus.
The Earth isn't flat. In other breaking news, the world is round, not flat.
And you don't need to be a scientist.
and we need, as responsible leaders, to take account of science.
So we prepared a contingency communications procedure, and guess what? We don't need that anymore.
There should be a legitimate debate between whether the Earth is round or flat. Because after all, any idiot can walk outside and see that it's flat.
This. Is NASA lying to us? Well, for me that was the beginning, because I started asking me myself why these people are trying to say that the world isn't flat. What's going on? We are in 2015, so why is there this debate out there? So that was the starting point to start research. And I came across with, few things that caught my attention. For example, one in 4 Americans think that the sun goes around the Earth. Survey says that. And 1 in 3 Russian guy thinks the same. So you have 400 million of people here. So 100 million people is a lot of people. So I assume that in that range of people there is going to be engineers, astronomers, astrophysics, regular people. So that can be that people that can be nuts and crazy. So I started to try to understand why they think that the suns revolve around the Earth and not the other way. So I'm going to go a little inside the rabbit hole. So like the title of David Weiss' YouTube channel. So in my country, we are totally under the control of the Freemasonic, Jesuit orders and Zionist agenda, like you are also here. You can recognize because that this is Washington, but this is Buenos Aires. We have the Eyes of Horus. When you see from the top in the principal capital city, we have the obelisk, and this is my city. My city is exactly equal to Washington. In fact, it's one of the most Masonic cities in my country. So I have to live with, a lot of symbolic every day that when I walk around my city. So, of course, there is a symbolic meaning behind the obelisk, and that is why they use now to try to penetrate the Mother Earth, the Osiris fault. That is the symbolic thing why they use this kind of rockets. It's all about the worship in the sun. I have in my city, I have an observatory, a planetary, and of course the Jesuit orders, present all the day. In fact, the thing came also, for example, the police guys in the Buenos Aires uses symbols like the Aleister Crowley Lodge and things like that. And of course, nobody understands why they use this kind of laws. We have the most Jesuit person in the world, which is the Pope. And this is the Pope when he was young, using a Black Sabbath, Black Saturday t-shirts. So you can see the background of this guy. In my city, we have the museum. Of course, the museum is also running by Jesuits. They preach like Darwin, they are putting on the walls. And of course, they have when you enter to the museum, you have all the culture to Egyptians, cultural Egyptians. So you have present in every aspect of the life. And of course, we have lodge, Masonic lodge. And the funny thing is, when you enter into the Masonic lodge, they asking for faith to science, which is in the own lima, or the own words inside. This is a big picture of this part of the image, and here it says faith in science. And when you start to research, you understand why they put faith in everything that present us, because it's the only way you can believe it, this kind of thing. So that is why they ask for the initiations to pay faith. And when you start to research, you come across that every hero in the science history is all Masonic, everyone. There is no even one. Of course, this kind of guy never exists, that are fairy tale stories, but the people that maybe exist, they don't even have the real name. For example, Newton is a symbolic name to new atom, which means new sun. And that is why he used names like Isaac, because it's the action of Isis for the new sun. So when you're starting to research, all the names have a symbolic meaning. I don't have time to go each one, but you can see how they use the symbol in every aspect. Of course, the NASA guys, I think they are the most experts in do all kind of stuff with involve symbolic things, right? And yeah, here we have the extreme symbolic thing with the Baphomet tattoos in his arm. So the NASA is full of this kind of symbolic things. So, for example, this is a guy of an astronaut. from Brazil, and he's also in Masonic Lodge. Of course, everyone see how they loud of us, no? The mocking. They even have they have also the patents and the credentials to be Masonic. So there's nothing new on that kind of thing. But when you start to see, for example, the supposedly real scientists, you start to notice that they are all founded by Jesuits and by Jewish people, bankers. And if you go back in time, you're going to see that the Jesuit order at the beginning of the 15th century also was founded by the Orsini, the Medici. So it's all the same. It's a fractal of the past in our days. And of course, when you, for example, start to understand that the Big Bang Theory is not created by a science, but is created by the priest, you need to ask yourself what's going on here, because if I'm going to go to the science, why is all the time intervened by religious people? So you start to realize that even Einstein could detect that the Earth is moving. No one, because of course it's not moving. That is why they can detect it, but there is nothing new also in that. And of course they have, for example, this is a wall in European Agency Space. So you can see how all this connection goes really deep. We have Jean-Luc Picard with Werner von Braun. Before they say, okay, this is the limit, the sky is the limit. And you can see the connection with the Disney family, and today the Disney family is Pixar, so they make a lot of computer animation. And then, for example, the books that they sell into the young people in the 50s is the same that they sell today. So it's a fractal all the time. You can see how they mock us all the time with the Disney face in everywhere. And of course they have the Walt Disney educational media company. So that is a little strange. You can see, for example, in the beginning of the 60s, how they prepared the community to accept the moon landing, and how Monsanto is in conjunction with Walt Disney creating the Inner Space Adventure, for example. This is totally brainwashed. There's a lot of videos speaking with that. Of course, in that time, Disney History Institute, not the Educational Media Center. Even some kind of other programming, Julio Verne, which is a Masonic guy, he prepared the people for accepting the dinosaurs, the earth, the core of the earth, the moon landing, and a lot of other things. But in his book, he used a flat horizon. You know, a little strange, my friend. Sorry, because some slides I don't have time to translate, so you're going to learn a little bit of Spanish in real time. So we have also, we can see also, for example, the rituals inside the founder of NASA, like Jack Parsons. They don't even hide. Wikipedia himself tell us that he was an Ordo Templis Orientis, which is a disciple of Aleister Crowley. They make pornography about the rockets, because that is very useful to enter inside the mind using feelings. So sexual feeling is a very powerful feeling to brainwash. And when we talk about that NASA have actors participating inside the space, not the engineering outside that work in other kind of stuff, it's because they are really actors. They even have credentials like actors. No, it's not a show. They are really actors. And of course, they have also strange acting, because they like to dress like a Jesuit sometimes. They use pre-programming, characters. So this kind of stuff is really, it goes really deep to trying to brainwash us. And when you're trying to find some real scientists on the media television, you also notice that they are actors, because they are actors. So you can see how the clothes that they use have also symbolic symbols, worshipping the sun. And for example, something that caught my attention was in this clip of the Curiosity landing. Look at that technology, it's amazing. And you can see here this guy. When I see this guy the first time, I say, hey, this is Snowden? It's real Snowden? So I don't know, I can't tell you, yes, 100% he's Snowden, but he's really have that the similarity. So maybe he's also an actor. That is why Russia never, Russia and the United States are friends in space with China, In Antarctica and the space, there is no war. A real strange thing. So, of course, they are all controlling by the media. These are channels, broadcasting channel of my country, and also they use the 666, the Eye, the Sun, the Jesuit Sun, etc., etc., etc. And of course, they have that important because the nervous system manipulation is controlling an electromagnetic field, which is a monitor. And look, the face of that woman is very happy seeing the monitor there. So they have, all planning. And for example, this is the history of astronautic in Argentina. You can see the checkerboard Masonic. You can see the Jesuit in the beginning of the 60s. What the fuck are he's doing there? It's a really strange thing, right? Because, and all the kind of, independence investigation about the aerospace was finished in the beginning of the 90s by the President Menem, because the Terrence Stodman, the ambassador from America, come to my country and say, okay, you're going to close your agency space and we're going to help you. And that is why we mock him. In fact, the Menem was the first guy to propose what Elon Musk is proposing today, a flight that, in 4 hours you can be in any part of the world because underneath the Earth is rotating. So that was the Todman was said to my president at that time, and this president was selling all Argentina, really crazy. And of course, we have our satellites here, for example, and we need to pay $260 million to repair in the 90s. So I think someone goes up in the space, take the satellite, go down, repair, and then put it back again. But we pay. So there you can see a little bit of the kind of stuff that how. Okay. Sorry, I need to go. I really need to go fast because it's not like I'm going to end. So, but we are not alone. That is something that I became aware when you start to think in other kind of scientists out there that really make the things. They give the experiments to us to try to prove that the Earth is stationary. So everyone knows the Michelson-Morley experiment, the Sagnac experiment. For example, the Foucault pendulum. When I become aware, thanks to Mr. Hivan Try and Survive, I can't remember the names of the channel, with the alias effects. This is the alias effects proven by University of Spain. You have the pendulum clock, just go back and forward. So what happened? The Earth was stopped in that moment. So that is the kind of things that the regular people try to use to debunk the movement of the Earth or things like that. And of course, we have Spanish people creating and writing books about that the Earth is not moving, and of course, some science portal take that notice and try to, to put out there for the regular people. And of course, our universe is totally electrical. That is no doubt about it. You have a lot of guys today speaking about that. For example, this is experiment made by the Thunderbolt project guys who recreate geophysics terraforming based on electricity with granite, with granite, and you can see how the moon, for example, the crater of the moon, there are no trails to the meteorite impacts. So there are all perpendicular impacts here also. So you can notice that how in lab they can reproduce this with electricity. So there is no doubt that our world is completely electrical. Of course, if you want, you can send some meteors. I forget to show the meteor shower based on electrical forces, sorry. But if you want some artificial meteorite, you can buy it to a company who send you to your garden, to your backyard. Of course, we have the sprites, for example. This is a lot of study, and if you can look here, look the limits. This is in the top of the atmosphere, so you can see the limit, and the electricity can go up because our atmosphere is composed by a lot of gases, but one of those gases, which is the hexafluoro gas. This gas is shooting down all electricity. It doesn't have any color. It doesn't have any. It's a helium-free type of liquid up there. So that is why they can go out even the own electricity. And we have that kind of things that determine this is a symbolic, because this is the real serpent of the knowledge. The aurora borealis have that energy that, you know, it's when you close your eyes and make some wishes, you also trying to find your black sun, because the black sun is the real manifestation sun. The white sun is for give energy, but the manifestation properties come from the dark, if you wanted to see in that way. If you press your eyes, you're going to see also like little sparks, green color, blue color. So that is the real power inside our system to manifestate and create reality. That is why they use, you can see here, this is the aurora borealis, this is the moon, and this is the white sun and the black sun. It's all a system. It's nothing, you know, it's not the black sun, it's not the bad sun. That is what they tell.
Good afternoon. My name is...
Sorry. That is what they tell to us to, you know, to get away of that kind of knowledge. But the real knowledge is that there is nothing out there in our planet that is bad. All is a system, very balanced. There are equilibrium. We have Don Scott, for example, talking about the electrical sun.
My name is Don Scott. The electric sun is a sort of a natural outgrowth of the electrical universe hypothesis. We know that there are magnetic fields.
Well, I just, sorry for the audio interruption, but if you want to see more about the electric sun and that kind of stuff, you can search for your own the Don Scott explanations.
There seems to be a new model,
because
or at least another patch.
You know, the heliocentric model is
problems
fall
that
apart.
I feel at least
it's not
are
have any kind of sense how they did, how they tell us that
that
works. This term of fusion, nuclear reaction, that kind of stuff.
And I would like to then
it's like talking about angels, you know, things like that. And some engineers and some guys, they know that this is a little trick, so they start to speak in conference in Europe, and they are doing a great job to trying to give another kind of information. So, for example, you can see this is, for example, what time is it? You may think that this is the midday or the afternoon. Can you put play, please? So if you compare this is a lighting. If the light comes from a lighting, so the sun have the same properties to give us light. So I don't know if can you put play? There is. So it's a lighting storm. So that is why the cameras need to make a white balance anytime they film outside, because we have that, you know, that light blue enter into the lens, because it's electrical light. Of course, if you put fire beside the plant is just gonna die and dry. But if you put a lighting bulb beside the plant is going to grow up. And all our body, the molecules, the ADN in our bodies, all is electrical. So that is why we need the sunlight. Of course, if you compare, for example, lighting arcs with the so-called flares, sun flares, you're going to see very quickly that it's more like electrical than fire. So, of course, we have guys like Faraday, Gauss, Hertz, Ampere, a lot of scientists of the 18th centuries who discovered this kind of energy. And today we have the plasma, what they call, they don't really want to recognize that this is for the ether, because the ether is eternal, it's all is the ether. There is no ether. That is why the sound, the energy, the electromagnetic field can fly. We come here. Of course, we have even people about NASA to complain about the Big Bang theory that never happened. That is why, when you start to realize, look at this guy, Halton Hart, with the Tesla invention, trying to give the hint of the universe is electrical. The Big Bang is just another fairy tale history. And you notice why these guys are so, persecuted, because this is what happened. The Jesuits and the Jews control all the science, education, health, everything. So when you are a real scientist and you start to see how these people are really inside of all the science, you piss off, of course. We have the limits, Ushuaia, called the end of the world. And I ask myself, why is it going to be the end of the world if it's a sphere? That doesn't have any sense. But if you are looking in the Gleason map and you see Antarctic, and we are the most country beside Antarctic, that is why Ushuaia is called the end of the world. Some guys say, okay, what happened with the water? What is the edge and that kind of stuff? And there are people that realize that the Antarctic is the most highest continent in the world. The Antarctic, when you enter to the coast of Antarctic, very soon it's going to rise up 2,500 meters, promenade of the continent. So that is why the balloons very quickly go up the clouds. You can see the NASA balloon with the flat horizon in the Antarctic. So what is the curve? That's something that need to, pay attention to this kind of thing. So that is why when you talk about the wall of Antarctic, there isn't any wall, because the iceberg that's floating around on the water, that's just iceberg. The real wall is because this rise up 2,500 meters. And of course, the technology of the human race is very far away from the technology of the creation. So we can penetrate the Antarctic. That is the real thing. So they keep it totally controlled with military bases, with treatments, and that kind of stuff. And all the circumnavigations around the world was made west to east. So you don't have other, other choice. Of course, the land inside the Antarctic is also a real great place to fake Mars. I don't know, maybe. This is a guy from NASA telling us that, and there is no audio, but he's telling, okay, this surface is the better to test our machines if anytime we're going to go to the Mars. So you can see how the things start to connect. And let me keep going. I have 15 minutes left. So, for example, this is by Argentina expeditions trying to pass, to make a trip in Groenlandia, which is the Arctic. And this is just what they do. They can go inside the Greenland, So you can start to see the limits. This is, for example, an abandoned base from the Cold War. So they don't have any interest. And maybe, I think they take away the attention from Arctic, because there is maybe the real, paradise, Shambhala, Agartha, etc., etc., etc. So they can allow to enter there, because they are like demons. So they go to the Inverno, to the cold areas. And that cold areas are, of course, the Antarctic. But I don't think that nobody can access right away to the Arctic. So they distract us showing these things in Antarctic. Of course, everybody knows the super deep Kola hole. That is the limit to going down, 12 kilometers. Even the ExxonMobil trying to reach a more deep on the ground, but they can do it. It's a lot of information about this study. We can put audio, please, for this one. I don't know why it's not audio. Okay, I'm going to put it again. This is very important. The audio.
There's a section of abyssal plain, a kind of flat line.
This is from Yale University, and when he teaches to the...
all the deep blue is abyssal plain.
So this is abyssal plain, go down deep 5 kilometers, and all this is flat. So all this blue is flat. And this is the abyssal plain. Look here, Africa to South America, totally flat. How 1,000 kilometers are there? So what is the curve underwater, So, of course, this guy is not teaching flat earth, but when you start to see these details in the regular, studies, you can see how the things start to... of course, anyone knows maybe the submarine that can't go down in the Marianas underwater zone. I'm going quickly because I don't going to finish the presentation. So that's are the limits. This is the guy who dies, who filming the underwater limit, died on the accident of helicopters in Australia. A little strange. So after all, the water is always level. We have, for example, the city of Venezia, who have 400 square kilometers totally at the sea level, for example. I don't know, you can try to find any example of the cool water, you're going to find none. So if you start to thinking and, okay, at what altitude you need to use to see the curve, you can do it by the Pythagorean method, by Samuel Robson method, by Bhaskara, the Indian mathematician's method. You can find the same result. Of course, this is not really accurate, but for the thousands of kilometers, it's really a good measurement. So when you're trying to ask even like Google, the Scientist magazine is going to tell you that at 20 kilometers, the curve of the Earth is totally perceptible and no doubt. So when you start to see balloons and rocket launches, these are rocket launches compilation and these are balloon compilations, and it's flat. You know, there is not any curve. Some of this video has a lens correction, of course, because they are with GoPro, and it's all the time is flat. And there is no any curve out there. And of course, the physics and the optics is going to tell us that with the camera, the range of the visible of the camera of the human eyes is going to end, obviously, is going to end in a circular limitation. That is what we call angle of view. If you're talking about angles, you're talking about circular things. So this is the most far away that the camera can capture the lights. But sometimes you're going to see flat, sometimes you're going to be like circular, but very far away to see a curve. And we're talking about 120 kilometers in that kind of video. And look at this balloon. From this point to this point, you can see thousands of kilometers. Look at the real clouds mixing and changing. That's something never shows in the ISS. The ISS is always the cloud totally stick. Never moves, nothing like that. And we have time lapse about 6 hours because they need 6 hours to move a robotic arm, and the clouds never change. So you can start to compare real stuff with tricks about Hollywood tricks using by trick people. So of course we have another kind of limit to test the limits with the operations, military operation via USA and via Russia, and both reach the same limit of 8,000 kilometers, 80 kilometers, sorry. And maybe some of these explosions are fake or are, composite, but they use symbolic name to try to get out, the Thor, the hammer of the Thor, to try to break the glass. And you can see some explosion that take the form of donuts because they can go up, because it's all this pressure of the atmosphere. So look, if that explosion can go up, I don't think a rocket can get out. And this is the gas that I'm talking about. This is a really interesting topic. I don't have time to show you, but have in mind, this gas is 5 times more dense than the air, and this gas has a presence of 3,200 years each time a volcan make eruption, for example. So can you imagine that how much of this gas is up there? It's a lot of gas. So you can see how they trick us. For example, this is our rocket launches. You can see the rocket launches is all the time. If you see for a really long perspective, you can see how the rocket go in a straight line. Of course, if you are in the place, you're going to see how, for example, this is a view for a frontal view. You can see how the rocket comes into the view. Down, you can see how the rocket go far away in this arc motion. But when SpaceX and these guys trying to show how they're going to put an orbit, a satellite orbit, they are in this mode. They go in a straight line. And I'm waiting for the video to reach. So if you see, for example, this is from a balloon. This is from a plane, and this is from the ground, and this is from the camera on the rocket. This is from the CRS-7 from SpaceX, and that is the rocket trying to get out. I don't know where, because there is a lot of land to try to go off the curve. And here you can see the flat horizon and how this rocket is traveling in a straight line, simply as that. So if you compare with, for example, the power of a telescope, if you put it in horizontal line, you're not going to see more than 50 kilometers. So when they're pointing up there, at the last moment that the rocket, drop away the principal booster and that kind of stuff, that rocket is at least at 60 kilometers, no more. So that is the way they need to cut off the video and put some Google Earth animation and that kind of stuff. These rocket launches, they don't reach more than 40, 50 kilometers at Mach. And there is a company called Flightline, a real strange name, who has this telescope to filming, and if you enter to the web page, they can reach with this camera more than 20, 30 kilometers. So that at that point, this spacecraft is supposedly 20,000 kilometers per hour to escape the gravitational force. It's really a crazy thing. So the limits maybe could be 100 to 250 kilometers going up. The sides is the limit by the Antarctic perimeter. The center is the Arctic, and down we have also 12 to 50 kilometers. That is the most thing that we can do in, material world. In the spiritual world, maybe you can go a little more far away. 6 minutes. So I'm going to pass really quickly these ones. Sorry for. If you like, after the presentation, you can ask me for anything you want. So, because I am computer animation, I used to work for History Channel, for UNESCO and other companies, and they asked to my studio to make a lot of things about the space, satellites, spherical world. That are my portfolio. At that time, of course, I didn't know that this is all a lie. Everyone knows that the all-eye composite is CGI. Everybody knows that even the own NASA tell us that it must be Photoshop because they don't have any other chance. And they fake all this kind of stuff, not just for the spherical Earth. They also use CGI to present us the star field, the galaxy, the new planet that discover every week. That is a really amazing things. We have Robert Hart working by NASA, trying to. And they show the things. We have the friendship companies working together, like Adobe with the pyramid in the logo, or Autodesk with the pyramid in the logo, or Microsoft with the pyramid inside Micro and Soft. And you can see how these families work together to trick us. This is, for example, a little Earth that I made myself in a couple of hours in the 3D Studio Max. You can see I can use this as a background for any kind of video. So it's very easy to create this kind of stuff. And of course, the first images or the supposed photographs, because one thing is a photograph, another thing is an image. Image comes from imagination, and photograph is supposedly to be real objects. The first one are these ones, but how they make it at that time, because at that time there is no CGI, of course. So they use matte painting. This is a very common technique used in Hollywood called matte painting. Of course, in our days it's digital matte painting. But you can see, for example, even the patents of the method. This is a patent from 1905, very long time ago, how they use on NASA to painting the Earth, then they painting the clouds, and they filming, and there you go, your non-CGI moon landing and other kind of stuff at that decade. So you have all the patents, how they... of course, they tell it's a simulator, but when you compare to reality, it's really, it's like the reality. You have this guy was the Roger Hayward was the guy who made the miniatures for the moon landing, and he works with Walt Disney, and he also is an alchemist. He believed in ether. This is a book from this guy. He created the projection screen that they use also Stanley Kubrick in the fake moon landing. So you can see how these families work together. They also have even, you know, apparatus and method for simulating spacecraft erosion. So they have all the simulations for faking everything. And why in the past the images looks more realistic? Because they use miniatures and they photograph the miniatures. So that is more realistic than today, because today we need to lead with CGI. The only problem is that it's very difficult to emulate the reality, the light bounces and that kind of stuff. So in the past it was more easy because they just photograph real objects and then composite with material painting. So when you start to see the method using, you start notice the method like self-locomotion system, which is impossible to predict a behavior, a physical behavior before you go to the moon landing in the lab. And when you start to compare, you're going to see the same kind of behavior. So that's a crazy thing. Nobody can believe that this guy, the dust is falling in real time, and the guy is trying to stay up, you know. If you go down like this, it's really, you know, if you start to compare the things, you're going to notice that there is a lot of inconvenient thing. We have the Gatsby plane. And the pattern of the Gatsby plane is for reduced gravity conditions airplane. So this is a huge plane to emulate whatever environment inside of this plane. I don't say that this is 100% the ISS, but you have space there to fake a little things. And of course, if you start to compare with other methods, the magician of this guy is also Freemasonic. So they work together. When you start to see you start to compare the method of the astronaut, you're going to realize that when they go live, they use you know, harnesses. Here you have the patent. This guy is stuck trying to make this. Yeah. This guy is falling down quickly, and it's really, you know, I make computer animation, so I know how this is doing. How they're doing this. So for me it was, you know, I never see it before. That is why I never wake up to this reality. But they use all the kind of trick that it's amazing. I have more material, but my time's run out. So the last thing, for example, we can see, there are toy clowns. You can see here, why is a gorilla, you know, in the space, that kind of things. This is very, you know, that's one of my favorites, because here you can see really that how they touch the wires, and, you know, there is and this guy, for example, why they pick up a baseball in the space to distract us from see this woman who is, you know, pulling by the cable. So they can replicate everything they want in CGI, in zero-G planes, and it's very, you know, it's very easy for it to trick us. I get out time, but well, the control remote is not working anymore. So the last thing, the last two minutes, please. For example, Google Earth is made by world-class Bexel camera aerogrid systems. They mapping all the Earth with planes. And if you compare, for example, with the method using in satellite, you will notice that this is real and this is a joke, because this is a world-class system. They have this kind of company all around the planet, so they synchronize all the informations, and that is why they make, you know, that is all controlled by CIA. All the image that they took, they need to supervise by the other agency before putting it on the public. So we have the drone technology. It's very easy in those days to fake the things. Of course, they construct the satellites, but they put it up in the balloon, and the rest is of the fiber optics, ionosphere bouncing. So there is very, very, you know, when you see those white point up there in the sky, if you start to compare, are balloons. Of course, at this altitude, for example, you can see the equipment of the satellite, and this little point is the real big equipment. And look at 50 kilometers, you don't able to see anymore, and these balloons rise up to 40 kilometers because sometimes they use super pressure balloons. So there is no any satellite up there in orbit. Yes, there is hanging on the balloons and things like that. So I need to go. My time go out. Thanks for listening.
He can come over and visit you at your house. You can call.
I'm a queen. Okay.
There is a lot of things that we all know, but what you bring to the table is something that we all need to know more.
I'm gonna make it special in the night if you want. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks to everyone.
Iru Landucci. Iru.
Okay. Yes. I'm still nervous.
Thanks for coming, Eric.
I told you.
Okay, thank you.
Love ya.
I told you. How many of you have seen him speak before? Anybody? How many of you were blown away?